I'm going to talk about it because it's a pretty long video. I'm going to move through different parts of the video to kind of talk about the different aspects and capture the entirety of the lesson. So here we are at the beginning of the lesson where she's sort of introducing what they're going to be doing and trying to activate some of that prior knowledge.
That's okay. We're just going to talk about this real quick. Okay, so question 270 here says that there are several ways to write the dimensions of the rectangle to the right. So this up here was just talking about there's maybe sometimes only one way to do something, and then there's other times there are multiple ways. So here, we have multiple ways to write these dimensions. Do you guys remember on Friday, we talked about...
Okay, so just a couple of things that I noticed right off the bat. The camera angle that we're at currently, I feel like is interesting. I think that it works. I do. I think this is like the traditional place where you would try to position the camera where you can see the students. I do feel like there are some groups out here that kind of get left out. Which kind of comes into play a little bit later in the video. But for the most part, this is kind of a traditional angle. The only thing is I think that it would be different if she moved the camera to one of the sides of the room, because right now it does look a little teacher-centric, and it's something that I've never really thought about before, but I know that the point of TPA is to observe a teacher, but right now it does kind of make it seem like you're going to be the leader in the classroom and these students are kind of eyeing you. I know that that is, where she's at. She's trying to do a little direct instruction, but I wonder if changing the camera angle or moving it to a different part of the room would make it seem less so, would make it seem, especially since considering that she has these groups laid out here, which is good, which I like, and kind of has the room set up in this way for collaboration. It might be to her benefit to kind of move it away from what's on the board. Now I know you want to be able to see what's on the board, but maybe just a little bit of a different angle where that doesn't become the focal point of the room. What I can also notice is that right here, there's a lot of text on the board. The students don't seem to be really engaged with what she's saying. I don't think they yet have a stake. I know this is the very beginning of the lesson, but I still feel like if I look at something on a board and it's covered in writing, I'm pretty much zoned out already. You have to, I feel like if you'd simplify it a little bit, or if she'd simplified it a little bit, it might get their attention more. But overall, I know that I wouldn't be able to look at that and read it or interact with it in any sort of way.
Now, adding on a movie theater and a game room to a house, and they gave us an area of like 160. And we had to come up with all the dimensions. Yeah.
One of the things that I also want to talk about is she's trying to activate prior knowledge right here, which is a good thing. I think that once again, there's just too much going on. Like it's just I'm giving you, up here on the board, here's all this text, and I'm kind of trying to throw you information. I think a better way to activate prior knowledge would be to show an example or provide students with some of their own work. Maybe go through and in a totally positive way, analyze each other's work. Like say, okay, we're going to look at some examples from what we did the other day. Let's look at what we like or what we don't like. Maybe that's just the writing teacher coming out of me, but I think that that would be a fun way to sort of activate prior knowledge.
Okay, so that's what we're basically going to be doing today, just with a more concrete example, I guess. So this question A says, how many ways can you write the dimensions of the generic rectangle outright? Draw a new rectangle for each way. So take a look up here. Do you see this right here? Look up here, guys, on the board.
In this moment right here where she's like, do you see this right here, guys? Look up here. That kind of language, I know we don't think about it a lot as teachers, and I know she's probably not trying to come across a certain way there, but I do think that it sounds a little bit like parental scolding, and I don't know how, I know how that would feel to me, and I know that at times I'm sure that I've been guilty of doing the same thing, but the students seem to be kind of like, oh, well now, look up here, and I think it makes it, once again, there's no investment. There's nothing on their tables that they can follow along with, and so I feel like that goes into that whole they're disengaged thing, and just hearing that is just kind of like, okay, we're tuning you out.
See how this is rotated from here? We want you to draw them in your notebook just like this. Okay, your page is gonna look like this. Not like that. Like this. Okay, just draw a whole bunch of them on your notebooks. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna work with your teams to figure out what those dimensions are.
Okay, a couple of things. Having these kind of drawn out like this and put on the board is one thing. I think that that's fine, but I have found that in my experience when I try to give my students like, hey, this is what I want it to look like, and I give them the end product, it doesn't ever go off as well as if I had modeled it for them. Now, I don't know what sort of access to technology she has, whether she has a, it seems like the kids have computers here, and she does have this, computer projector board. I think, though, that if she had a document camera or taken a video, taking time to show them how to set it up in their notebook, I know that may be me going a little too far, but I find that it always makes things easier to watch somebody walk through it step by step. Also, perhaps just walking them through one of these problems instead of just I know that that's a few seconds after in the video, but she kind of turns them loose. But I think that it would be beneficial, even though they've kind of already done this, maybe to walk them through one problem together, and then have them work in teams.
Okay, so you're just gonna copy these down in your notebook, and then come up with all the possible ways, all the possible dimensions.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of skip ahead to kind of get through the lesson here and show you different parts. Here we are going to see her. She's kind of walking around and interacting with students, which is a good thing. It does take a little bit of time for her to get into that, but that's okay. I think that she's still trying her best to get around and discuss things with the students, and I'll show you some of that. The only thing about her interacting with students is the audio quality of this video. You cannot really hear what she's saying. It's, I can see her, I can kind of analyze the body language here, but I don't know if she's facilitating or if she's giving answers. I don't know what sort of information or data that she's providing the students with. So that's the only downside of the audio here.
Everybody's trying to work on it. Are you just supposed to finish talking?
Hey guys, take a second, look up here. Just pause. Okay, look up here. If this side length is 1, what is this side length? 1. Okay? And so is this one right here, right?
I think it's good to clarify. I do think maybe putting the power in the students' hands there, or at least giving them some positive feedback when they do figure it out would be nice. But I do like how she's trying to share, something she's encountered with this group and bring it out to the whole class if she feels like everyone's, struggling with that or might need a refresher on that. But once again, I do think maybe, hey, why don't you, as a student, share this out with the class, something that you figured out, or maybe work them through it in the group and then let them share it with the class. I think that would kind of make it, give the students a little bit more stake in what they're learning.
So this value that they share right here.
Once again, I'm going to move forward a little bit in the video. So she does go and talk to this group in this corner, which I do think is great that she's moving around the room once again. What I did mention in the beginning of this video is that when she gets over here, you can't really see her at all. And so thinking about that, and you can't hear her, can't see her, she kind of disappears from the frame. But moving on, when they are finished working in teams, which I do also enjoy that she uses teams as the language there to collaborate. I think that that's great. She kind of takes it back to the board.
Okay, and then my 20
on top of 1, 2.
and then
The 3 go on top of
3. Okay, because he knows 6 times 20 is 120, and 6 times 3 is 18. Okay? Kylie, give me another one.
2, 69 and 2.
Okay, so we're
One of the things that I will say is I like how she has student involvement here. Like she is talking to these students. I don't see, there a little bit later in the video, the students do come up with answers, and I don't see much positive interaction. It's just like, okay, let's move on. Let's do this and move on. But one of the things that I think would be really cool here is instead of these students like fighting to share their answers, if we had done something like in the beginning that I talked about where everybody's kind of working on a real world problem, like some sort of gallery walk, or allow these students to get up and share what they learned together, I think that would be a way to kind of take the focus off of the teacher. She could still facilitate, but then bring it to a whole class collaboration in a way where it's student led, and I think that would be really neat. In order to kind of save time and keep this from going way over, I do want to just say that towards the end, she does kind of switch the camera angle, which is really interesting. And she goes around and kind of talks to students, at this angle. And you can see more closely the collaboration with the students. And so I think that works to her benefit. It really does change it. Having somebody being able to like follow her around, it gives a much more personal feel.
Alright, let's go over just the one that I had you guys write. Does somebody want to come up here and show me what they wrote? Noah?
So once again, a more personal feel. I still think instead of calling students up to the board, something where it was more group power, or so you're not being called out. I think that's still a better way to do it. But overall, that's the lesson. I think there's some really good bones to the lesson, and I think she did a great job as far as walking around and helping students. I do think that there are more or better ways, to engage the students in this kind of lesson, considering it is such a real world. Dimensions, are everywhere. I feel like it can be applicable to these students' lives in some way, maybe picking out something that they're engaged in. But overall, good lesson. I just think it could have been changed in some ways, and interesting camera angles to discuss.